Our Old Testament reading comes from Genesis chapter 45, 3 through 11, 15 for February the 20th, 22. This is the end of the Joseph cycle. There are three major patriarch sagas in Genesis. If you take Genesis and you take creation all the way up to before Abraham, you've got the story of Noah, which is pretty significant. And then you have Babel, and you have the story of Adam and Eve. But the story really kicks off in Genesis when you get into Abraham. You get the story of Abraham. Isaac is kind of a footnote, really. Jacob is the major player. And the last one is Joseph. And Joseph does not have an easy life. Maybe that's why Jacob gave him the coat of many colors and doubted on it and preferred him and treated him so nicely. But Joseph had dreams. He was gifted and blessed by God. Jacob understood dreams. Jacob had a dream. Angels climbing up and down ladders. Jacob understood Joseph's dreams. He also understood what it meant to be the younger instead of the older brothers. But Jacob's treatment of Joseph did not serve Joseph well, but made the brothers even more jealous. And actually, they wanted to kill him. Till the brother says, wait a minute, let's not kill him. Let's throw him into a pit. And then they sold him into slavery. In slavery, he was accused of adultery, thrown in jail, even though the accusation was incorrect. In jail, he only got out because of his ability to interpret dreams. And then he became advisor to Pharaoh and ended up saving not only Egypt, but also the children of Jacob, the children of Israel, from a severe drought. Now, given that story, especially being sold into slavery, how would you feel when you re-encountered those people once again? What does it feel like to be betrayed by those who you love? To be tossed aside and rejected by your family and those whom you've loved and respected as a child, for they are your older siblings. It's not surprising that Joseph does make them pay a little bit. But in the end, in this passage, Joseph tells them not to be angry, not to worry, because God used what they did for God's purpose. In fact, if it hadn't have been for what they did, the entire family would have died in the famine. Joseph has come to a point in his life when he's able to see how God has turned even the worst situations for good. And what a mystery God's plan is. I've had that experience in my life. I don't know if you've had it in yours, but I have a feeling that we've all ended up in places we didn't expect to be, but were at the exact place at the exact time we needed to be there. We couldn't have planned it better. And yet some of the circumstances that led us to that place, we would much rather have avoided. and which left scars. Sometimes the only way to experience the wonder of God is to walk by faith through the mystery of God right now. Even though that mystery may seem dark and painful, to remain faithful to God, to seek God and God's goodness and God's grace, and to know that God is always with you. God will never abandon you. And God has called you to something better. If even for this moment, you have to walk in the darkness. Joseph realized this. And because of his acceptance to this, because he welcomed his brothers, because he welcomed his family, because he chose not to be bitter or angry or resentful and let that fester in his life, but he chose to seek the goodness of God, he became the salvation of nations. The children of Israel, however, overstayed their welcome, would eventually become slaves in a foreign land. And the story of Exodus would be set up. What was meant for good, because humans did not continue to follow God, turned into bad. But what was meant as bad by humans, through God, turned into good.